Hey everybody, it's Anna. Welcome back to my Fluid Art channel and thank you so much for stopping by. Today I am going back to basics to talk about what are the acrylic pouring techniques. Oh, and this is a tough one because there are so many techniques. Or are there? The answer might surprise you. So I'm going to give you a really quick preview of pretty much every single technique that I know, and it's a lot of them. The links to the full tutorial videos are going to be down in the video description, so if there's one where you go, hey, I want more detail on that, you can find them all down in the description. But the main goal that I have today is to take all those techniques and group them into different categories, which will help give you the confidence to be able to select your paint mixture and consistency, as well as give you freedom to improvise. My categories are: number 1, techniques that use silicone oil. Number 2, techniques that are blown, either with a hairdryer, by mouth, or with a straw. Number 3 is straight pours and all its variations. Number 4 is techniques that use a cell activator. And number 5 is other. So this one is going to catch all the other techniques that didn't fit logically into the first 4 categories. I'm also going to be talking about some of the common methods and tools that you can use to modify your paintings. Quick note before we start going through these: not every single artist is going to share the same definition for each technique as another artist will, and that's just due to the nature of fluid art. We don't learn this stuff from a textbook. We learn by watching other people, right? And the people that we watch are creative, and they're taking these techniques and they're tweaking them and they're trying new things. So just be aware that as you're learning this stuff, sometimes there may be several names for one technique. Other times there may be several techniques that are kind of lumped under one name. So I'm going to give you my best definitions for all of these pours, but just know it might be different from some other people's, and that's okay. Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to start with techniques that use silicone oil. I'm guessing that most fluid artists start their acrylic pouring journey here with silicone oil because it makes it so easy to get those beautiful, luscious cells. So the first technique that I'm going to show you is the classic flip cup pour. Silicone oil is added to your paint, usually mixed in with all the colors. Then your colors are added into one or more cups, either in clean layers or just dumped in randomly. The cups get placed upside down on your canvas, either by turning the canvas or by just plopping the cups down quickly. The cup or cups are then lifted up, either straight up or pulled off to one side. The paint then is stretched over the canvas, either by tilting or by spinning. One variation of the flip cup is a flip cup in a flip cup, otherwise known as a Boilermaker. This involves 2 different cups, usually with different color schemes in each one. The small cup is placed in the larger cup, they're inverted on the canvas, and then they get pulled up one at a time. Next we have a dirty pour. Now this one might get me just a little bit of disagreement because I think when it was originally developed, the dirty cup pour, it just means that you layer your paint haphazardly instead of making neat layers in your cup. But when I was first starting, the dirty pour video that I saw, the person used silicone oil in it. And so in my mind, the silicone was always what made it a dirty pour, a greasy pour, that's my logic, versus a straight pour. Anyway, in my version of a dirty pour, your paints are all mixed with silicone oil. They are layered like a flip cup, either in neat layers or however you feel like dumping them in. But instead of flipping your cup over on the canvas, you simply pour the paint all over. You might pour fast or slow, high or low, thick stream or thin stream, it's all the same technique. Then you stretch your paint by tilting or spinning. Next up is a swipe. So you put your paint down on the canvas, either in lines or swoops or puddles. Then you add a line of your swipe color, either at one end of the canvas or in the center of the canvas. Take your swiping tool, either a large piece of plastic or a wet paper towel or something similar, and lay one edge into the swipe color. Pull backwards slowly until you have reached the edge of the canvas. Then swipe again the other direction if need be. The next one is my own signature style, the micro swipe. A micro swipe is very much like a regular swipe. Silicone is mixed into all of your paint colors except the swipe color / leading edge color and the base coat. So add a base coat of paint to your canvas, spreading it with a palette knife. Then make a multicolored line of paints. If you want a specific swipe color, end with a straight line of that swipe color on top. Then, using small, flexible swipe tools, touch the swipe color and pull across the colored paint and into the negative space. You can pull straight, or you can make wavy lines. If you're making a shape with a tape stencil, your swipe color will be closest to the stencil instead of sitting on top of your other colors. You'll add just half of the base coat first until the swiping is finished and the tape is pulled up. Then you can add the other half of the base coat. Another variation on a swipe is using a palette knife. Start with a base coat that doesn't have silicone oil in it. Then put the silicone paints in ribbons all over the canvas. Take your palette knife and swipe it gently across the colors. You want it to glide, not dig in. I like to make a nice wave pattern, first moving one direction and then swiping the other way. It's a good idea to wipe off your palette knife after each swipe, and don't do a lot of re-swiping on any area, or your paints will get blended and muddy. And the last technique in the silicone oil category is chameleon cells. This one's a little different because you don't mix the silicone oil in with your paint. Instead, you do a pour, and then you add the silicone oil with a toothpick. Start by doing a pour, like a flip cup without silicone, or my favorite is a swipe, where the colors are layered diagonally. When your canvas is covered, dip a toothpick into silicone oil and poke it gently into the paint wherever you want a cell to form. You could cover the entire canvas in a grid of cells, make shapes with your cells, or even just add a few cells to a pour that you think needs a little extra something. Paint consistency matters for this. Too thick and the cells won't want to form. Too thin and the cells will get huge and misshapen. For all of these silicone techniques, I would recommend a paint consistency of medium to medium thin. And if you don't know what I mean by that, check the video description. Now, the mixture that you choose for these, it does matter. I highly recommend using Floetrol because it reacts so well with silicone oil and paint. If you use glue or certain pouring mediums, you might need a butane torch to help kind of pull up those cells. We are done with silicone oil, so now it's time to move on to the techniques that are blown out, usually with a hairdryer, but sometimes by mouth or with a straw. Many of these are just generally lumped under the term Dutch pour, but I want to show you some of the common variations. First up is the classic Dutch pour created by Rinske Dauna. Add a base coat of paint to your canvas, either with your hairdryer or a palette knife. Make one or more puddles of your colored paint, generally close to the middle of the canvas. Pour some more base paint around the puddle to increase its ability to flow. Blow the base coat over the puddle, then blow the puddle out across the canvas. You can tweak sections as necessary with your breath or with a straw. Next is a chaos-style Dutch pour. For this, the base coat is only on one portion of the canvas, and the colors get layered on the other portion. You can blend the colors a little bit if you want, and then blow the colors across the negative space to produce a beautiful organic look. Another Dutch pour variation is where the colors are laid out in a line instead of in a puddle. After adding your base coat and the line of colors, if you want to, you can kind of scrunch up your line by blowing the sides in towards each other. This will create more blending of your colors, but you don't have to do it that way. Then blow out the line of colors, either in a straight line or in alternating petals to either side. A further variation of the Dutch pour line is using a split color base. Add 2 or more background colors and spread them out. Then add the remaining colors in a line between the 2 base colors. Blow it out as before, and enjoy the variety you get on both sides of the flow. Then there's a Dutch pour twist, which is very similar to a Dutch pour line, but the direction of your hairdryer can make a really cool twist effect in the middle. Lay out your colors in a line or in two fan shapes. As you blow out each side, start the hairdryer on opposite sides of the line so that the flow will appear to twist in the middle. You can use your finger to blend the two lines and really make that center twist look really nice. Next up is the Dutch bloom, which is very different from the Shelly Art bloom, which we'll talk about later. This one uses the Dutch pour method and a spinner to create beautiful flower shapes. Add a layer of base coat to your canvas, then make a puddle of your colors in the middle. Add some more flow paint around the puddle, and blow the puddle out into petal shapes. Usually 5 petals looks the best, but you could do anywhere from 3 to 7. Spin the canvas to stretch your design out evenly in all directions. You can use a palette knife to shape your petals as needed. Then there is the botanical Dutch pour, which is a variation on a Dutch pour line. Add your base coat and put your colors in a line, but don't have the line cross over the edge of the canvas. Blow it out with your hairdryer, then use your finger to create veins, curls, and other details in your design. Whew! I think that's all of the official Dutch pour variations, but you're going to see a lot of people creating beautiful paintings with their hairdryer. For example, waves, like Molly does, or organic designs like Olga Sobey makes. It doesn't matter what you call it. Have fun and experiment with painting with your hairdryer. The last one up is blowing your paint with a straw. You can use this to make flowers, or to make a jellyfish, or anything else you want to use it for. For all of these techniques that require blowing, I would recommend a thin to medium thin paint consistency just to make sure that your paints can really flow well. I like using paint and water for my Dutch pours, but you can also use Floetrol or Oatrol. Both of those work well too. The next category is straight pours and all its variations. So to me, the definition of a straight pour is paints mixed without silicone, stacked or combined or layered somehow in a cup, and poured out on a canvas. It's a pretty wide definition, but I think by grouping the techniques together in this way, it'll help you see how they're all similar, but also how very slight changes to your mixture or your movements can have really big effects in your finished painting. First up, a very basic straight pour. Layer up a cup of paint. You can stack neat layers, or you can pour it in more randomly for a dirty cup. You can choose whether you add a base coat of paint first, or make a puddle of base paint, or just pour onto the dry canvas. Pour out your paint on one spot of the canvas and just let the layers flow out from there. The height of your cup will affect the width of your paint stream, so experiment with that if you want a different look. Once all your paint is on the canvas, stretch it out by tilting or spinning. Next is a wandering straight pour. Prep your cup of paint exactly the same as for a straight pour, but as you pour it on the canvas, let your cup wander a bit. This will allow the beautiful lines to make different patterns and move around each other. You can turn your cup as you pour to change the way the layers come out. Then stretch it out to reveal all the beautiful details. Next up is a galaxy pour, which was created by Sarah Mack. Some of the specifics to this technique are your paint is mixed with Floetrol, and some of your colors are either Deco Art satin enamel paints or house paints, which can help to create the signature boulder cells. Layer your colors neatly in a cup and add a puddle of base paint or flow extender to your canvas. Pour the paint into the puddle, constantly changing the height of your cup and possibly pouring in circle shapes every now and then. Once all the paint is on the canvas, spread it out by tilting or spinning. Sarah likes to tilt hers, but I really like the uniform stretching that a spinner gives. A similar one is a cloud pour. This one also uses special ingredients to make big, puffy cells. In a cloud pour, your paints are mixed with Floetrol, and usually there is at least one Deco Art satin enamel paint in there, though you can also use semi-gloss interior house paint. Layer your colors in a cup, add a base coat or a puddle of base paint to your canvas, and then pour the paint out. You could pour straight in the center, or make rings, or whatever you want to do. Let the paint rest for a few minutes to allow the clouds to start forming, then tilt or spin to stretch it. Next is a pearl pour. Pearl pours are very similar to cloud pours, and they can be a little tricky to get right because you have to have paints that react in a certain way, specifically a low-density base coat. Cover your canvas in a thin layer of base coat. The base coat is the layer that will give you the pearls. Then layer your other colors in a cup and pour them out somehow, such as in a ring pour. Tilt or spin your canvas to stretch the design out. As the paint layer gets thinner and the paint moves back and forth, the lighter density base paint will rise through the top layer and form pearls. The next technique in this category is a ring pour or a tree ring pour. Ring pours work best with a neatly stacked cup. If you want really crisp layers, keep your paint mixed thicker, and if you want more blending or natural cells, go with a thinner mixture. Put out a small layer of base coat if you want to help the paint stretch more easily. Pour your paint out in circles. You can make large circles for wider bands of color, or small circles for narrower bands of color. If you switch directions every now and then, your colors will be more balanced on both sides of the circle. For stretching out a ring pour, spinning will give you the most symmetrical look, but you can always tilt instead. A variation of the ring pour is a traveling ring pour. This one is fairly self-explanatory. Do it exactly the same as a regular ring pour, but move your cup across the canvas as you pour in circles. Next up is a waterfall pour. I learned this one from Julie Cutts, and it's a really fun type of straight pour. Layer up your cup with neat layers. Then take your canvas and raise up one end to make a gentle slope. Pour your cup out on the uphill side of the canvas. You can jiggle your stream back and forth to make lots of beautiful lines and details. Once all the paint is on your canvas, tilt it to stretch. You can add additional flow paint on the sides or corners if you don't want to lose too much of your design. A variation of the waterfall pour is an angel wing pour. This one uses a split cup to keep the two sides of your design separated as they flow out. Cover your canvas with a base coat. Then put the base coat in the center chamber or chambers of a split cup and layer the wing colors in the two outer chambers of the split cup. Pour it out like a waterfall pour and you will end up with two beautiful separate wings. The next technique is a kiss pour. Layer up 2 different cups of paint, ideally with different color schemes in each cup. Pour them out so that the 2 streams of paint kiss and fall to the canvas in one new stream. You can pour in one spot or move the cups around the canvas. Next up is a ribbon pour. Layer your paint in neat layers, or put them into a split cup if you want your ribbons to look the same all the way through the painting. Pour the paint out in ribbons, either straight lines back and forth, or swoops and spirals. It's up to you. Stretch your design by tilting or spinning. Another way to do a ribbon pour is on top of negative space. Start with a base coat on your canvas, and then add the ribbons. When you stretch your design, you will be able to see pockets of that background color in between the ribbons. For all of these straight pour techniques, I would recommend a paint consistency of medium to medium thin. And in terms of what mixture to use, I would highly recommend using Floetrol, as it's nice and reactive and gives lots of cell reaction without needing to add any other ingredients. If you use glue or Oatrol or other standard pouring mediums, you're going to get a lot of crisp, clean layers in your pours, but less natural cells. Let's move on to techniques that require a cell activator. Now, in case you don't know this already, a cell activator is not the same thing as silicone oil. A cell activator is a high-density paint that is swiped or blown across your other colors to produce beautiful lacing and cells. The official recipe for this is Amsterdam titanium white mixed with Australian Floetrol, but I've had really good results just using Amsterdam titanium white mixed with water. Check the video description for my cell activator comparison videos. Most techniques here fall under the category of blooms, which is a technique created by Shelley Carruthers. Blooms have their own specific set of ingredients, but I've found that most of these pours, if not all of them, can be done equally well with Molly's pouring medium, which is a lot simpler for me. Check the video description to see more about both of those mixtures. The first one we're going to start with is the classic center bloom. Put down a large puddle of your base coat called a pillow. You can spread it all over the canvas or leave it as is. Layer your colors in a small puddle in the middle of the pillow. Add a small amount of cell activator onto the middle of the colors. Blow down on the cell activator to spread it out a bit, then blow the cell activator across the colors and into the pillow. You can blow by mouth or use a hairdryer with a round end. Stretch your design by spinning if you can. Tilting could result in your lacing getting misshapen. A variation on a center bloom is a floating bloom, which I learned from Jody Flynn. Do everything the same as with a standard bloom, but you don't want your design to cross over the edges of your canvas. Floating blooms are best with some modification, so have fun with it. You can use a palette knife to pull out some petals. You can add swirls, anything else you want to do. Another variation is a bloom vine. Start by covering your canvas with pillow paint. Then add a line of colors, either in ribbons or puddles. Pour a line of cell activator across the middle of the line of colors, then blow it out in all directions. Because this design isn't centered in the middle of the canvas, don't be too quick to stretch it. Give the paint a few minutes to all reach the same thickness, and tilt or spin gently to get your design how you want it. One of the easiest bloom variations is a bloom swipe. Add a layer of pillow paint all over the canvas, plus a line of pillow in the middle of the canvas. Then add your colors in a line. You can add a line of cell activator on the middle of your colors, or you can put it directly onto your swipe tool. Touch the swipe tool in the center and pull back slowly and gently. Swipe again in the other direction, then stretch your design by tilting or spinning. Another type of cell activator swipe uses a palette knife instead of a sheet of plastic. For this one, you can either put your colors in little puddles or all over the base coat. Then add a thin layer of cell activator to the bottom of a palette knife and swipe gently across the top. You want your palette knife to glide, not dig in. Clean the palette knife and add more cell activator for each swipe that you do. You can also use a palette knife and cell activator to add a swipe of lacing in pretty much any other pour you do, so feel free to go wild with it. Next is a spin swipe, which is a palette knife swipe on a spinner. Add your pillow paint and make a puddle of colors in the middle of the canvas. Then add a thin layer of cell activator to the bottom of your palette knife. You can do this with any type of palette knife, but this sort of leaf-shaped palette knife gives the best results. Gently touch your palette knife into the pillow with the tip just slightly past the center. Spin the canvas quickly with your other hand and pull the palette knife towards you as the canvas spins to create a beautiful spiraling design. Then continue to spin it until the design stretches over the canvas. The last variety of cell activator pour is a transfer bloom or transfer swipe. Start by making a bloom design, either blown out or swiped, on a separate surface. Then put a base coat on your actual canvas. Using a small piece of plastic or stiff paper, scoop up a section of the bloom design and let it slide off of the card onto your base coat. Repeat as many times as you want, then stretch out the design. For all of these cell activator techniques, I would recommend that your paint be medium to medium thick consistency. Even though you can get good lacing with a cell activator on thinner paint, your lacing and cells are going to hold up better as it stretches if your paint's a little bit thicker. The final category of acrylic pours is Other. Now, the majority of these use specific tools to make creative effects in your paintings. Not all of them. Now, a lot of these tools can be combined with other techniques. The first one is a flip cup, but without silicone oil. Fill one or more cups with colors, either stacked neatly or added randomly. Turn the cup over onto the canvas, then pull it up, ideally swooshing it off a bit to one side. Tilt or spin to stretch out your design. Not every paint mixture will produce lots of cells, so you might need to try different mediums and consistencies to get the result that you want. Next up is an open cup pour. This one uses the top edge that you cut off of a plastic cup, or you can use a cookie cutter or some similar thing. Add some base paint to your canvas, either all across or in one puddle. Place the open cup into the base paint and add small amounts of your colors one by one. After every few additions, slightly lift the open cup to let the colors flow out underneath your base coat. Then add more colors to the cup and repeat as often as you'd like. You can do a stationary open cup pour, or you can let it travel across your canvas if you want. When you have enough paint on the canvas, pick up the cup or let it slide off the canvas, then stretch out your design. The next one is a funnel pour. This one is actually very similar to an open cup pour, but it just uses a different tool. Add some base paint, either all across the canvas or just in one puddle. Set the funnel down in the base paint and start layering your colors inside. When you have enough paint inside the funnel, lift it up slightly to let the paint flow out. Just like with an open cup pour, you can let the paint flow straight out from one point, or you can drag the funnel across the canvas to make a traveling design. For wavy, pleated lines, gently bounce your funnel up and down in one spot as the paint flows out. Then we have a pendulum pour. This one involves a cup or bottle of paint that swings on a string. Prepare your canvas if you want to. You can do a pendulum pour on a dry canvas or on wet paint. Hang a cup, bucket, or bottle from the ceiling and poke a small hole in the bottom. Add some paint and then let it swing in circles over your canvas. Not all paints work perfectly for a pendulum pour. It needs to be very flowy but not very watery. Watery paint will produce lots of droplets instead of a clean line. House paint is often a good choice for a pendulum pour. The next technique is a string pull or chain pull. Add a thin coat of base paint to your canvas. If it's too thick, it will cause problems. Then take a string or a jewelry-sized ball chain and dip it in some colored paint. Carefully lay it out on your base paint in a wavy line and pull it towards yourself to make a beautiful botanical-looking design. You can use chain pulls or string pulls for making flowers, jellyfish tentacles, coral reefs, and many other designs. Next is a puddle pour. This one is very simple. Pour your colors into small round puddles, then stack up layers inside the puddles until you have as many layers as you want. Tilt your canvas to stretch out the paint and make all your lines form interesting shapes. Molly likes to do cell activator swipes through puddle pours, so that's always something that you can try too. Then we have a dustpan pour. This one uses a mini dustpan or another similar tool for laying the paint on the canvas. Take your mini dustpan or similar tool and make a layered design with your paint in it. This could be a puddle style, or ribbons, or even a bloom. Carefully pull the dustpan across the canvas, letting the paint flow out slowly. Repeat as many times as you want, and then cover your edges either by tilting or by adding additional paint. The next one is a ghost swipe. This is very similar to a micro swipe, but it uses no silicone. Add a layer of base coat to the canvas, then make a line of your colors down the middle or at one edge of the canvas. Add a line of base paint on top of the line of colors if you'll be swiping both directions, and use small pieces of plastic or paper towel to swipe the base paint over your colors and up into the rest of the canvas. The colors will appear to rise out of the base color in a ghostly fashion. If you're swiping both directions, go ahead and swipe the other side. A variation of the ghost swipe is to make some literal ghosts. I shaped these with a straw and then added some funny eyes to give them character. Another easy technique is a bottle bottom pour. For this one, you'll need to cut the bottom off of a small soda bottle or water bottle, one that has little feet at the bottom of it. Usually they have 5 feet. Add some of your background color onto the canvas, then put the bottle bottom in the middle. Pour your colors out, either in a ring pour from a stacked cup, or one color at a time in small layers. When you have enough paint on the canvas, pick up the bottle bottom and stretch out your design. You can drag a stick through certain areas to help emphasize the shape of the petals. A similar technique is a strainer pour. This one uses a sink strainer instead of the bottom of a bottle. Make sure your strainer has vertical slots that go all the way to the bottom instead of just scattered holes. Add a base coat or some flow extender to the edges of your canvas if you want. Place the strainer in the middle of the canvas. Then pour your colors into the middle of the strainer, either in a ring pour from a stacked cup or one color at a time in small layers. When you have enough layers on the canvas, carefully remove your strainer and stretch out your design, ideally by spinning. A variation on a strainer pour is a Nautilus pour, created by Nate Bright. Add your flow extender or base coat to the canvas and put the strainer in the middle. Put 3 or 4 colors of paint in a split cup and pour them out in a slow ring pour. Every few seconds, turn the canvas a little bit so that the colors create a spiral pattern. Remove your strainer and spin it to open up all the beautiful layers. The next one is a colander pour. Mix a cup of paint and pour it out through a colander. It will give a similar effect to a strainer pour, but with a much larger center. You can also try pouring on the colander while holding it above the canvas. The paint dripping through the holes will make interesting multicolored patterns. The next technique is a dip. This one is really fun, especially with small, irregular shaped items like wooden ornaments. Make a puddle of paint on your tabletop or a piece of cardboard. It can be a random scattering of colors or a more intentional design. Take your canvas, ornament, or whatever you are dipping and touch it into the paint. Press lightly to make sure that the paint covers the whole surface, then lift and turn it right side up. Super cool! A variation on the dip is the reverse dip. Add a base coat to your canvas and make your design with your colors, either randomly or in a specific design, like a flower. Lay a paper towel over the top of the wet paint and get it all touching the paint. Then carefully lift up the paper towel, usually one corner at a time. Another cool technique is the ninja swipe, created by Sarah Mack. This one works best on a medium to large canvas. Cover your canvas with a base coat, then make some puddles of color at one end. Use a stick, ruler, spatula, or similar tool to swipe up through the puddles and fling the paint across your canvas. Another tool that you can use in your pours is a split cup. So this is not so much its own technique, it's more a way of ensuring that as you pour out, your colors are always the same. Because if you take a regular cup and you stack up your colors in it, as you pour it out, the blend is going to shift based on which layers are pouring out at any given time. But if you're pouring out of a split cup, it's always going to be the same clean, unblended colors. You can use a split cup for a ribbon pour, or in a ring pour, or in a strainer pour, or a bottle bottom pour. The size of the split cup and the number of chambers in the cup might change depending on the technique you do. Another variation for several types of acrylic pours is the reveal pour. This one uses a transparent base coat, such as straight Floetrol, so that you can layer one acrylic pour on top of another design. Create your background, either with an acrylic pour, a brush-painted background, or spray paint. Let the background fully dry and cure, then do another pour on top of it, such as a Dutch pour or a micro swipe. The Floetrol will appear opaque while you are painting, but will then dry clear, revealing a beautiful multi-layered painting. That's all the miscellaneous techniques. Pretty much all of these can use a medium to a medium thin paint consistency, so you can figure out what is best for you. That's also the end of the official full painting techniques, but there are some tools they can use for modifying or manipulating your paint that can drastically change the overall look that you get. So I'm going to talk about a few of them. First of all, you can use a large marble. Start by doing a pour that has a lot of contrast, such as a ribbon pour, puddle pour, or ring pour. Place a large marble into the paint and tilt the canvas around. As the marble rolls, it will pull your paint into different designs. This one is unpredictable because the tilting not only moves the marble, but moves all of your paint around. So you have to think about creating a design and also stretching a design at the same time. Next, you can use a skewer, chopstick, toothpick, or other thin tool to make swirls and lines. This works best in pours that have a lot of layers, like ring pours, strainer pours, or ribbon pours, and it also works well to create additional designs in swipes and bloom pours. Start by doing a pour. You can either modify before you stretch the design, which is good for ring pours and similar ones, or you can finish your design and then add the swirls, which is better for bloom pours. The direction that you move the stick will affect how the paint is pulled, so play around with it and see what you like best. The next modification is a balloon kiss. Now you can make an entire painting out of balloon kisses, or you can add them to specific areas in a pour. Blow up a smallish balloon. Press it into the paint wherever you want to make that firework design, and lift up slowly. If you want to press the balloon onto another canvas to transfer the paint over, you can do that. Wipe off the balloon before pressing it into your painting again. Another type of tool that you can use is a wide-toothed comb or a catalyst wedge. You can dip the tips in silicone oil to make lines of chameleon cells, or swipe it through your painting to create interesting wavy lines. And finally, you can use embroidery hoops or cookie cutters of various shapes to essentially do 2 pours at the same time. Pour out a design and put the hoop or cookie cutter on it. Wipe around the edges to remove extra paint, then pour out the rest of your paint around it. Lift the hoop or the cookie cutter carefully, and then neaten your edges as need be. Whew! That is a lot of techniques, and I hope it was helpful for you to see them all previewed here, all back to back, as well as grouped into categories that behave in similar ways. I'm sure I missed some, so let me know down in the comments if there are any techniques that I didn't talk about, and also feel free to ask me questions of things that you'd like me to talk about in future videos. Thanks for going back to basics with me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys!